is the reading rush, day 1. Unfortunately, my iPhone ate shit, so I have to use this Android that apparently has a potato for a camera. So let's hope it's not going to be too terrible. I look like I'm in a dark room, but I promise there's sunlight coming in through my window. It's about noon right now. I slept in a little bit, got up at 11, decided to watch a couple of YouTube videos while I had breakfast, and then had to figure out how to install the SD card on my phone properly, which I'm not totally sure if that was worth my time considering the video quality, but that's fine. So I have iced coffee, my pile of books. I'm thinking that I'm probably going to start with The Girl from the Other Side and then go from there. And I'll update you whenever I finish this or decide to move on to something different. This isn't exactly an update because I just started, but I just wanted to show y'all how pretty this art is. I'm kind of in love with it. Like, look at that. It's so pretty, and it's dark, but like, I'm interested to see the contrast of like this big scary thing with this little guy over here. But I'm just really looking forward to this artwork. Also, before I decided to close my computer, I checked YouTube, fortunately, because Kathy Trithart, hopefully I'm saying that right, is doing a reading rush stream, so I will be reading along with the stream this morning, or afternoon. Okay, so I'm only a little bit of a way through, but this book is just so cute, and I don't know what to do with myself. This big, scary looking creature is taking care of this little girl, and she just made it a flower crown, and I'm gonna cry because it's the cutest thing ever. Alright, so I finished The Girl from the Other Side. I also turned a light on so that I might look less weird, but I don't know if I actually accomplished that. But this was so cute. Like, I didn't really know what to expect. I mostly got it because the cover just looked really interesting. I didn't really put too much thought into it, especially because after I'd picked it up, somebody had said that they'd read it and really liked it, so I figured I'd made the right choice. I am so glad that I judged this book by the cover. I had to stop reading twice because I was crying because it was so wholesome, and that's not really what I expected from this. It's definitely dark. There's a really dark background, a fairly dark backstory, but the actual characters that you're focused on are so sweet. This giant black creature is not human and doesn't understand a lot of human things, but is trying to take care of this child, basically. It's the sweetest thing ever. And the little girl is so sweet. I have lots of feelings, and it left off on a cliffhanger. So I'm really mad that I don't have the other volumes, and I told myself that I wouldn't buy any more books this month because I really went overboard. But I might have to go and buy the rest of these, or at least the next 2. I love it. This is absolutely 5 stars, no question asked. So far as what I'm going to read next, I'm not sure if I'm feeling Hamlet yet. I do really want to get to that, but I think that I might change genres. I'm trying to decide between Queering the Stage and Illness's Metaphor. Queering the Stage is plays and monologues that are looking through LGBT history in different ways. It's a fairly short book. It's less than 100 pages. And then Illness's Metaphor, well, this is actually Illness's Metaphor and AIDS in its Metaphors. It's 2 different essays, but put into one book, and it's a little under 200 pages. So if I were to start with the first essay, it'd probably be about 100. But I don't know if Illness's Metaphor would be too sad right now. I think I'm going to start Illness's Metaphor, and then if it's a little bit too intense, I'll go to Queering the Stage. A little bit of an update. I got to page 37, so chapter, if that's what they're called, 5 of Illness's Metaphor. I ended up stopping for a little bit because I was hungry, but since I am low on groceries and also lazy, I ended up going to get Taco Bell that's down the street. So I'm going to have a little bit of that and continue reading. Alright, so it is almost 8 o'clock. I have made it through Illness's Metaphor, which is the first half of the Susan Sontag book that I have. I had a lot of thoughts on this first essay, to be honest. I went in and I highlighted a bunch of stuff. Basically, the premise of this is that it looks at the way that different kind of high-profile diseases have been treated, and both the metaphor that has been put on the disease, but also how the disease has been used as a metaphor, and kind of looking at what discourses are interlinked in different ways. It talks at first a whole lot about tuberculosis, which I've got to say I didn't really know a whole lot about. I knew that like Edgar Allan Poe died of tuberculosis. Something just occurred to me as I was reading, because they mentioned rabies in this text. Earlier I mentioned Edgar Allan Poe as who I think of when talking about tuberculosis. That's because his mom and love interest and like other people died of TB. I don't think he died of TB, if my memory from 10th grade English serves me correctly. He either died from alcoholism or rabies. So, yeah, I just didn't want to get that twisted. That's what I think of. I think of, like, Victorian ladies fainting, the Moulin Rouge, that sort of thing. It talks about kind of the aesthetic that was created around tuberculosis and how that became popular. Like, it was popular to be sick or to look sick, to look thin and pale with, like, rosy cheeks like you had a fever. And it was also seen as a disease for, like, those with lots of passion and, like, thoughts and feelings. At some point she says that, you know, as tuberculosis was sort of fading out, a lot of the negative stuff from tuberculosis, a lot of the negative stereotypes was put onto cancer, and a lot of the more kind of emotionally, not just positive, but there was a lot that went into the way that cancer is seen, and a lot that is put into the way that, like, insanity was seen, or other mental illnesses. Like, I can totally see with the connection of tuberculosis and all of these different artists and poets, I could totally see that being similar to the way that depression is seen, and the idea that, like, all good artists, like, if you have depression, you can't be on pills because the depression is what makes you a better artist. The idea was that because they were a great artist and because they had all of these different feelings as, like, writers, that's why they got tuberculosis. And so with that, it's talking about how people are sort of blamed for their illnesses in different ways, because tuberculosis wasn't all positive, right? There was a positive side of it, but it was still seen like you caused your disease. And she talks about how that's kind of put into cancer as well, and has been. She actually pulls a lot of medical literature that tried to tie in depression, and with cancer, and it's interesting because there's stuff like depression and, like, not really seeing people that was connected to cancer in, like, the 20th century, but before that it was, like, overexerting yourself was one of the causes of cancer. So wrapped up in basically everything that she says is how ill people are basically blamed for their illness, and that's also seen in the way that it is used as a metaphor, because when people use, like, any illness as a metaphor, but especially, like, cancer, like calling a group a cancer of a society, that's seen as, like, whoever is the cancer is inherently evil. She says a whole lot more that's more nuanced, too, because she talks about the differences between tuberculosis and cancer, and also how syphilis was also used. Syphilis was also heavily used as actually an anti-Semitic metaphor, which I had no idea about. I'm not doing this essay very much justice, but if you're interested, definitely read some Susan Sontag. She was writing in the 70s, so I think that there's definitely some stuff that's changed since then, so far as how cancer is seen, but a lot of it made sense to me. From, like, the victim blaming perspective is definitely seen in stuff like lung cancer, even the stuff about, like, glorifying certain sick people or expecting them to be saint-like. She doesn't talk about plagues or epidemics a ton in here, but she talks about it enough, and I would be super interested to see how all of this, would line up or go along with the current epidemic. I had some thoughts that I wrote down, not necessarily a whole lot of them, particularly some on like judging the community and either an illness being seen as a curse in response to negative behavior or the illness seen as causing the negative behavior. And I would also be interested to see how denial and the subsection of people that are sort of in denial, how that would play into all of this as well. I'm just kind of rambling at this point. And it made me think a lot of things, and it was super cool. But I'm going to switch over to Hamlet before reading AIDS' metaphor. It's a Hamlet graphic novel. I said this in my TBR, but not all of you have maybe seen my TBR. But I read the play Hamlet multiple times. I really enjoy it. I've seen multiple renditions of it. This graphic novel is going to be for my prompt of books inspired by a movie you've seen, kind of interpreting that kind of loosely. I may eat food before getting to this. It is kind of dinner time, considering I had lunch at like 2:30. So I'm probably gonna make some food and then get to Hamlet. Alright, so it is almost 10. I've had dinner, had some tea, and I've done a couple of Twitter reading sprints, which I've never done before. It was kind of cool. I feel like I prefer the read-in, just because it feels more like I'm interacting with people. And with Twitter, like, it's cool that you can reconvene with people after a certain amount of time, but I feel like it's inconvenient if you, like, get into the groove of it and then realize, oh, you know, it's been 10 minutes, I have to stop to type. There's also not a timer, unless you, I guess, set a timer yourself, or maybe turning on notifications. But I've gotten to page 66, which is part of the way through Act 2. So Hamlet has seen his dad's ghost and decided to go on and avenge his death. Hasn't done anything about it quite yet, other than either feigning madness or not feigning madness. You don't know, because it's Hamlet. That's part of the point of it. I think that it's funny how easily I also fell into the niche of hating Polonius. That's definitely one character that I hated from the first read. The one thing that I expect to change, and a character that I'm paying attention to, is Ophelia. Because when I read this in high school, I really detested Ophelia. I actually didn't like her until I had my, like, 4 or 5 or however many rereads that I did in high school, because I'm just a nerd. And then I saw BBC's rendition of Hamlet when I was a freshman in college, and whoever played her really made me understand her better. I think that I've read it again since then, but I don't totally remember everything that I thought on that other reread for my Shakespeare class. That would have been like my junior year, or maybe second semester sophomore, I don't know. But with this, I think that it would have been more interesting to have the original text instead of the No Fear Shakespeare text with the graphic novel. But I think that's just my personal preference. I understand that the point of having the graphic novel is so it's accessible to younger people, so that they could read this and then read the play or whatever. So I get why they did it, but, like, I want a version with the regular Shakespeare beside the graphic novel, because I think that would just be super cool. But so far I'm liking it pretty well. I'll probably end up reading it, or probably trying to hunt down the BBC rendition of it again and watch it at some point. Yes, hello. Hi. So, that's where I'm at. I think I'm gonna continue reading. I might poke around on YouTube for a minute first. We'll see how it goes. So, a little bit of an update. I did get to Act 3 in Hamlet. There's not really much, update on that front necessarily. None of my opinions vastly changed through a half of an act. But I have started to read AIDS and its Metaphors, and hopefully I can finish that up tonight. update using my computer rather than my phone since it's charging, and honestly, this might be better quality. I am on page 125, which this first essay started on page 93, so you can do that math. I've read about 32 pages. I'm on page 125, so I'm going to take a little break and watch YouTube videos. I also grabbed a snack. This is some vegan chocolate that I got a while back. I tend to stock up when it's on sale because all of the chocolate that I can eat is like super expensive most of the time. So I'm gonna take a small break, have a snack, and then once I'm done with that, I'll get back to reading. My snack has been eaten. More tea has been acquired. I realized I didn't mention last time what type it was. This is the same as the last cup that I had, but it is peppermint herbal tea. I like to try a lot of different types of teas. I actually have a whole lot, but I end up, oftentimes I'll default to Earl Grey for like a black tea. So far as herbal teas go, I end up defaulting to peppermint a lot of the times, or really more often I try to do lemon and ginger because that's supposed to be really good for your gallbladder, and my gallbladder does not like life. But yeah, I'm going to attempt to drink tea and read apparently with a cat in my lap. So if I end up having to reposition this, I apologize for inconsistency, but that's just life. Ma'am, what do you want? Are you gonna sit, or are you just gonna stand on me? Gonna rub on my teeth. is almost 1:30 in the morning. I still have about 30 pages left of AIDS and its metaphors, so I'm gonna finish that in the morning. So this is all you're gonna get for day one.